This video is a free taster clip from my brand new ukulele course, Jazz Beginners. More details later in the video.
First, let's understand the mechanics of how chord melody works. Chords and melody at the same time. Well, let's think about what we have available to us on the instrument. When we hear a chord, for example this one, the highest note of that chord in terms of pitch is the chord that we're going to hear most. Our ears naturally gravitate to the highest pitch, and so when we play different notes on that highest pitch string, our ears notice that the most. We almost perceive that like a melody. So even if we take a D minor 7, our highest note is this C, C, then a G7, the highest note is now this B, and then play an A minor 7, highest note is now an A, so we get this kind of da-da-da melody. So as a general rule, the melody string is going to be the A string, because this is where all the highest notes are. So we now need to start thinking about the ukulele, not just as one complete block of chords, or block of notes I should say. We're going to separate these strings here, the three closest to the ceiling, and they're going to be the chord strings, and then the melody is going to go on the A string. So in this example, we're going to use the melody of 5'2". This song is structured in AABA form. This is that structure where we have the same musical material happening twice, and then a bridge, and then that for A theme again to finish. Here's a quick rendition of how this tune is normally played in ukulele circles, using a generic strumming pattern and generic chords. 5'2", eyes are blue, oh what those 5 foot can do. Has anybody seen my girl? Turned up nose, turned down hose, never had no other beaux. Has anybody seen my girl? Now if you run into a 5'2", all covered with fur, diamond rings and all those things, bet your life it isn't her. But could she love? Could she woo? Could she coo? Has anybody seen my girl? So now we've got the chord progression, let's work out the vocal melody. Let's do our same process of singing along to those chords. 5'2", so our first note, 5. What note's that? First let's see if we can match it to the open strings. 5, there you go, it's that E string, 5, but that immediately presents a problem. Remember how I said that the melody's got to be on the A string? Well, our first note is on the E string. This means that we can't play in the key of C for our chord melody. 5, so we've got to find another key. What key could we go to? We've got all the other keys. How do we know which one to choose? Well, first of all, let's see where this E fits in with the wider range of notes in 5'2". E is currently our lowest note. It's currently our only note, being the first note. But it's our lowest note currently. So if this goes any lower, then we know that we have to find a key where everything can be put up. And if it goes any higher, then everything's got to be put down. 5'2", eyes of blue, oh what those 5 foot can do. Has anybody seen my girl? E is our lowest note. Okay, so that's good. That means that in our new key, the word 5 has got to become our lowest melody note. So now we know that the word 5, 5'2", 5, is that lowest note, the E. We should replace this E with whatever our lowest melody note can be, which is the open A string. So if we know that 5'2" needs to become 5'2", then we can work out the rest by comparison. So where does the original go? 5 foot. What note's that? 5 foot. It's on the 3rd fret of the E. So we've gone from 5 foot. So now in our new key, we know that we're starting on an A. So what's the same distance? Well, we went up to the 3rd fret. So let's do the same on there. 5'2", 5'2". Okay, so now we know where the melody needs to sit. 5'2". See if you can work out the rest of the melody of the A section. Pause the video and get back when you think you've done it to see if you've done it right. Okay, here's our new melody of 5'2" in the new key. 5'2", eyes of blue, oh what those 5 foot can do. Has anybody seen my girl? Or seen my girl? And remember that we've put it all on the A string because that's our melody string. Now we need to find the chords to go with it, to go on these other strings. Let's go back to the key of C. The first note was that E. E. And we know that E is the 3rd degree of the scale of C. And we know that we were in the key of C originally. So, what is A, the 3rd degree of a scale of? That A being our new lowest note in our new key. So if we count downwards, A, G, F. We found the 1st degree of the scale, and therefore the scale that we're going to base our new arrangement around. That's F. So we're going to be playing in the key of F. So let's compare the key of C to the key of F. Whenever we see the C chord, the first chord being played, we now replace it with an F, which is the first chord of the key of F. The F chord fits nicely under the fingers because the highest note of this chord is that A. And then, what's that next melody note? It was on the 3rd fret. So we can go 5'2" and play each time as a chord with just a whole strum. First time with a normal F shape, and then we can add a finger on the 3rd fret to be our melody note. 5 foot, and then take it off again. 2. Then what's the next chord? In the key of C, it was an E7, which was the 3rd chord in the chord scale of C. So what's the 3rd chord in the chord scale of F? It's an A7. So the first note when we're at the A7 chord is another A, eyes, and then the next note's a C sharp of blue. So we can do this exactly the same we did with the F, do a full strum of the A7 chord with this A note ringing on as the melody. Then we add the C sharp of, and then take it off again, blue. What have we got so far? 5'2", eyes of blue. The next chord in the original key was an A7. That's based around the 6th note of the chord scale, A, in the key of C. So the 6th degree in F is going to be a D. So a D7. This is our D7. Now we haven't got the melody notes that we need. We need to go from an A to a D to an A. Oh, what those 5 foot can do. But because of the D7, we've got this C. So do we know another D7 shape where the A is left as an open string? Yes, we do. It's this one. This is probably one you've played before and known it as the Hawaiian D7. This D7 has the open A string, and if you play it with the first 2 fingers, you should be able to just stretch your little finger to reach that 5th fret when we need to. Oh, strumming it normally as a D7, then with that finger, what those 5 foot can do. With all of these new shapes, we need to make sure that whenever we're adding a finger on, we practice this as a new chord. So just make sure that whenever you get a new shape, practice it a few times with a few strums like that, and then go back and add it into your arrangement. Oh, what those 5 foot can do. So now I'm going to play you what we've got so far, and then I'd like to leave it up to you again to try and work out the other half of the A section. Here we go. 5'2", eyes of blue, oh what those 5 foot can do. So just as a reminder, here's the melody. Anybody seen my girl? Try and find the correct chords that go along with that bit of the melody, and then see if you can find the shapes that allow you to touch those melody notes high up on the A string. Have you ever thought about playing jazz on the ukulele? Believe it or not, the ukulele is really well suited to playing jazz, and there's a whole host of stuff that you'll be able to do with your ukulele that you will never have done before and you'll never do elsewhere. So why not come and study some jazz ukulele on my brand new online course?
The Jazz Beginners course takes you right from the basics, where you only need to know a handful of chords and strumming techniques, and by the end of the course you'll be able to play dozens of jazz standards really well. We've got hours of videos split across 7 modules and over 40 lessons, most of which come with a downloadable PDF and activity pack. You'll learn how to play with others, as well as gain more independency as a musician. I've been playing jazz ukulele all of my life, and I'm constantly exploring and finding new things, and through these courses I'm going to be sharing some of that information with you. So why not head over to matthewquilliam.co.uk and begin your ukulele journey today.
Because you are all I long for, all I worship and adore. So far we've been looking at replacing the old chords in C major with the new chords in F. So the next chord for the lyrics, "Has anybody seen my girl?" in the key of C was a D7, then it was a G7, and then it was a C. The D is the second note of the scale of C, so now we need to find the second note of the scale of F, our new key, and that is a G. So let's find a G7 first of all. We know our G7. Has anybody... What's the next chord for seen my? In the key of C it was a G7, G was the fifth note of the scale of C. So the fifth note of the scale of F is a C. So let's play that as a C7. Has anybody seen my... And then finally we had a C chord, and we've already seen it before, where a C chord is always replaced by an F chord. Anybody seen my girl? So, can we reach that melody note? Anybody? With this G7? No, we can't. We need to get here, and I can't even get anywhere close. So we need to find another G7 that's higher up the neck so that we can reach that F note there on the 8th fret and still play a G7. We've seen how we can play this G7, which was 4, 5, 3, 5. And if your fingers allow, you could stretch up to the 8th fret there. And then what about ni? That was on the 5th fret. That's actually where our shape originates. So you could go anybody. However, that does involve a lot of tiresome little finger action. Now sometimes I do play it like that, but sometimes I'll also go between this shape for when the melody's on the D and this shape for when we need that higher note. This is a complete bar of the 7th fret and then a finger on the 1st fret of the A string. It's exactly the same as the original D7 shape, just on the 7th and 8th fret. Has anybody... Now both of those changes, whether it's this to this or this to this, have their own advantages and disadvantages. So try them out both ways and think about what's the best way for you. Got one more chord to go before we go back to the F. It's a C7. The melody is seen my, so 3rd fret to 5. Can we do a normal C7? Seen my. We could do that. We needn't even finger this C7 because we're just doing a normal C chord and then putting a finger on the D note there. And in fact, you may already be aware of the shape of a C7 where you bar the 3rd fret and then a finger goes on the 3rd fret of the C string. This gives us the 7th note there, and it also gives us the melody note on the A string, the melody string for seen. And all we have to do is add this finger onto the 5th fret of the A string for my, seen my, and finally on the F, girl. That lowest melody note, the A, is already left open on the F chord. So now let's have a look at fitting this all together. What does the whole chord melody thing sound like? 5'2", eyes of blue, oh what those 5 foot can do. Has anybody seen my girl? That's the A section of 5'2". So that brings us to the end of the introduction to chord melody. We're going to dive a little bit more in depth in the next module. First we're going to cover the B section of 5'2", and then we're going to move on to another tune called All of Me. 5'2" has quite an easy melody, just an average of 3 notes per bar, and they're all equal length. and even if we have a different number of notes, it's often a smaller amount. So it all fits nicely and neatly into our strumming pattern. But the next tune we're going to learn, All of Me, features a lot more notes with different rhythms, and that is something else that we need to consider in the next module.